Hi guys, thanks for joining me again for another update. Leigh, I think we'll go straight to the point of the curtailment of the 1920 season. I'm assuming that we as a club were fully supportive of that decision.
Well, we voted for it, Tom. So yes, I think it became a pretty easy decision in the end. I think if you look at the reasons why the season was curtailed, the first one is to do with being ready for COVID-19 security. Well, like many clubs, we're not. There's a lot of work to do to be COVID ready. Therefore, the safety of our players and our staff and everybody else is paramount, and we weren't in a position to secure that in a way that we would need to. The second thing is one of sheer cost. The cost of being COVID secure between now and the end of the season was prohibitively expensive. And the third thing is we wanted some certainty. In the absence of anyone making a decision about the ending of the season, let's make it ourselves. Because you can't keep going on like this, not knowing what the future is. So I'd like to know what it is, almost, irrespective of what it is. So let's just make a decision and get on with it. So on three counts, the right decision.
And on making things COVID secure, Dan, what is being put in place at the stadium and at the training ground just to make sure that we are safe when we eventually reopen the stadium and the training ground?
We started quite a big body of work, Tom. That started a number of weeks ago. We've nominated a couple of members of staff who are our COVID-19 officers. That they obviously include the likes of our safety officer, our stadium manager, and Jamie Nevin, who sits just underneath the executive board. So they're doing a body of work around the training ground, stadium in terms of the offices and the shop as the phase one returns. And then obviously we'll move that into the stadium and the conference and events areas in due course. But obviously it is a big body of work. We've got government guidelines, we've got EFL regulations, and obviously it's a subject that's new to many of us. I'm heading that up, and then we're presenting that into the executive board daily, and Jamie joins us weekly for an update. So it's a big body of work and one that we're undertaking in earnest.
And it is something that's going to affect everybody really, but with all that work being put in place, it will be safe for the potential return whenever that is for fans, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we're taking this body of work as seriously as we are, and that's why we've started it before the curtailment of the 1920 season. So that work was undertaken and started way before the Tuesday votes, and will continue to take place until we're in a position where the training ground is safe for the players and the staff, and the stadium is safe for staff and our supporters and customers. So we won't be open until we're safe, and we won't sign off the COVID-19 protocol as an executive board until we're comfortable that we can deliver on what that protocol has put in place.
And what will that mean for the players when they do eventually return to the training ground? What sort of things will they have to follow?
It's a moving target because obviously the body of work that's in place at the moment for the return to training has gone from step 1 to 2 to 3 during a period where we haven't trained. So we're making sure that we're safe at each point, waiting for us to return. But the key for us at the moment is to have a date for the commencement of the new season, so then we can work backwards. Darryl wants around an 8-week period in which to get the players back in and ready for the new campaign. I think we're all fully aware that you can overtrain as well as undertrain. So that's the period of time that Darryl has put aside. So we're moving the goalposts of what COVID-19 protocol looks like at the training ground to coincide with the work the information that we're receiving from the EFL. So it's difficult to say this is what it will look like when the players return, because ultimately, at this moment in time, the date for them to return is a moving target.
Well, Tom, in answer to your question, I mean, the players will have to follow very strict protocols in terms of we can't open the canteen, we can't open the gym, we can't use the facilities that we would normally use the training ground. They'll have to arrive in separate cars. They'll have to bring their own kits. They can't use a shower. So there's lots and lots of different protocols the players will have to follow to make themselves and the rest of us secure. So I think that's pretty much where you were coming from as well. What difference does it make? And that's the difference it sort of makes. Have to get ready for a whole new range of protocols and disciplines that they've never seen before.
And whilst we've seen that in the Premier League with teams returning, contact training to come back in, but you're saying with them arriving in their own cars, will we, look for a potential restart to training in smaller groups, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously we'll be looking at even down to where the players park and how much space is between each car. And as the chairman rightly says, the players will turn up in their own training wear. They'll train in smaller groups to begin with. So it'll be a very different way of training. And to quote the phrase that Stefan used last time we spoke on Zoom, it'll be a new norm. It's a new norm that we're all getting used to and working towards.
And Steph, one thing that Leigh mentioned in an interview earlier this week with BBC WM was that it's a calculated guess as to when the season's going to potentially restart, early, middle September. But is there anything that's been said amongst the EFL, as to when a potential restart date is going to be?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a number of discussions ongoing. Everything is obviously reliant on government support. And we have to fit in line with their protocol. We're working towards an early September start with a fair wind. We think that's achievable. The stadium will certainly be ready, as will the training ground and the offices. We just need the green light to go ahead and start football again. And we'd like to start football with crowds inside the stadium. It might be a limited crowd. It would be a COVID-safe crowd as much as it can be. But that's what we're working towards. I mean, we feel really strongly that, football behind closed doors isn't really what supporters want. Yes, there'll be financial packages in place that will allow supporters to watch the matches via iFollow. But I think we've all missed football for long enough now. We'd like to see live football. And the players want to play football in front of crowds. So we're very hopeful that in early to mid-September, we can get the 2021 season up and running with a crowd of sorts inside the stadium. It's what we all want, and it's something that we're confident we can deliver if we're given the green light from the government.
And for us as a team, where we hit between 4,500 and 5,500 fans for most of our home games, it may be that, we are a model where we say to the EFL, look, we can incorporate crowds into our stadium because of, the space that we might be able to utilise.
Possibly,
yeah.
Tom, but it's not the EFL we need to convince, it's the government.
Yeah.
It's I mean, I think if we move from 2 meters to 1 meter, that will allow sufficient relaxation. But I think the EFL can't really move until the government do. So I think we need to recognise that. We can give the EFL as many questions as we like, but they're waiting for the government to make their decision before they can move.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, we are obviously, I wish we were 10,000 capacity every week, but sadly we're not at the moment in time. So we do have capacity, and we are hopeful, as Leigh says, given the green light by the government, that everyone that wants to come and watch Walsall live next season will be able to do so, and hopefully from as early as September. But we're all just sort of, it's a watching brief at the moment for us. Everything will be put in place. We just need the go ahead to do it.
And one thing that Leigh's mentioned previously is, if there were no crowds in the stadium until October, you would have to reevaluate things. But how much does a delayed restart affect, the finances of the club and the club overall?
It affects it significantly. I mean, we've effectively months worth of income from the closure in March through to a potential opening in September. I mean, it's 6 months worth of income. Our turnover is between 5 and 7 million any given year. So that's a lot of money that we've missed out on. And it's not just through the football and the crowds. Obviously, the conferencing business is in hibernation. The Sunday market has been out of action for the best part of 3 months, although thankfully they did reopen last Sunday, and that was a big success. They themselves have had to obviously adjust the market to make sure it's COVID safe, and there were one-way systems and social distancing. But we lost the income from the market for 10 weeks, and the income from the digital signs on the M6. Whilst we've still managed to generate some revenue from them, advertisers that normally go on those signs themselves have suffered because of the crisis, particularly in the retail sector, and they haven't been advertising as they normally would do. So across the board, the impact has been significant from literally from the close down mid-March. So a delayed start to the season doesn't help that situation. However, as the chairman said on many occasions in the past, we've sort of budgeted for an October for everything to get started again. And we've put finance and structure in place to ensure we get safely through to that point. So if it starts in September, whilst it's a delay from the normal August start, we won't be in bad shape. So that's the hope, Tom. But and it will take some time for it all to work its way through the system. And the next 12 months will be tough, but we're not in a bad position to attack that.
And you talk about finances not being as strong as they have been, but Dan, what sort of things are potentially being put in place to help that? A kit launch we mentioned in our Zoom last month. How close are we to that sort of thing?
Very close. The kit is due into the UK this month, the month of June, and we'll be in a position to launch the new kit in July. As we spoke about before, we are conscious that these are difficult times for everybody. So after the superb reaction we had to the early bird, we feel that this gives us a bit of time before we launch the new kit, so we can get that out. Now the new season, but the old season is finished, and the new one is on the horizon. There's no better time than to get that kit launched. You're involved, Tom, in terms of the launch date, so you know where we are with that, and the fans can look forward to the new kit's being unveiled in the coming weeks.
And that will really help us out. And I mean, suppose moving forward, Leigh, just how competitive a club do you think will be? When I spoke to you last week, you said, for you, promotion is a target. You want to be out of League Two at the end of next season. But what sort of support will Darrell have moving into the new season? Can we expect to be a competitive club?
Yes, we can. And why do I say that? Well, if you look at the last 10 games of last season, we were third. In terms of our form, and a lot of the players that we brought in last year and then progressed through the year are with us next year. We're in a very fortunate position where the core of players that we had last year, we will have, last season, one just finished, we will have for the coming season. And my own view is that squads will be capped next year. So we've been used to squads of 29, 30. You can forget all that. It's going to be a squad of 23, 24. And that's true for all the clubs, I think, in League Two and League One. And I think we'll be extremely competitive. One, because we've got another year of the same players gelling and working together, and we began to see the fruits of that towards the season that's been curtailed. And with Darrell and Brian and all those guys working with these players, I think we've got a real chance. And as I said before, I think it will be a far more even playing field, because we have a problem, therefore we throw lots of money at it. Those days are gone because people haven't got any money anymore. And so I think it will be a lot more even playing field in League One, League Two, and probably the Championship than we've ever seen before. And as far as I'm concerned, bring it on.
I think if you look at it as well, we've got, 18 professionals, who are contracted for next season, which, teams might look at that and think, well, Walsall are in probably one of the strongest positions in League One and League Two, really, because when you look at teams who've released players, there might be down to some teams who have got maybe 5 or 6 contracted players there.
Even less, Tom. I know of 1 or 2 clubs not that far from here. They've got 3 players. Now, that's a hell of a rebuild. It's where we were a year ago. We've done all that work, and we've got some very good players at the club. And we will build, we'll enhance, we'll bring some others in. But the core of the Walsall football team is there. And, we saw, didn't we, the last 10 games of last year, what we're capable of. And I expect us to be very competitive. And, Darrell and I spoke we speak just about every day, but we had a long conversation last week at the training ground, and we're both do not want to be in League Two at the end of next season, no matter when it starts.
It's not just the rebuild, Tom, in terms of physically getting bodies through the door either. Where we're in a good position is we will have 18 players who all know each other. They know what they're capable of. They'll know what they can do. They'll know each other as individuals. So when we return in smaller group training, okay, we'll be returning smaller group training, but as a collective, they'll all know each other. Imagine trying to rebuild knowing that you can only return in groups of 3 or 4. It's very, very difficult to get the team to gel anyway, let alone when you've got phased return to training. So I think that stands us in good stead as well.
You know, and I think
I'll add to that, and I think we'd all, I think Dan, Stef and I would argue very strongly that the academy this year has been significantly better than anything we've seen in the past few years. And the players coming through the academy that are going to be first-year professionals next year are very good. And that won't well. So I think we mustn't forget the work that Miguel Leal has done with his team and the academy. And, you know, I'm really excited to see these lads play.
I think a good point with that one as well is that Miguel's standards meet Darryl's standards, and I think we've seen so far, like last season with Darryl, he's willing to give young players a chance, and with the likes of Sam Perry, Joe Willis there, they're going to be following on in the footsteps of Alfie Bates, who, you know, we're hoping is going to kick on and have another impressive season.
Absolutely, and they will. I'm excited by them. I think we'll see more of Alfie. We forget how young he is as the season progresses and bring the others on. We've got other young players as well, you know, that are coming through. And I'm really hopeful, and I wait for the damn season to start, frankly. And I would say that anyway, frankly, but because I know what the players are capable of doing and these new players coming in, I think Walsall Football Club's in a pretty good place compared with other clubs. And I've said before, the clubs that come out of this COVID-19 crisis the best will prosper next year. We are planning to be one of that.
And a point that I'm sure all three of you could probably expand on is, for example, if somebody was to be brought into the football club, what would have to be done to make sure that they are safe to come into the club? Because obviously with 18, you do want to expand to say, like Leigh said, that a squad of 23. What's got to be done to make sure that player coming into the club is safe and secure to come in?
They'll follow the same protocols as the rest of the players, Tom. So at this moment in time, if we were back tomorrow, there'd be testing of players on a couple of times per week. And then obviously they'd form part of that protocol that we've spoken about, travelling on their own training wear that they would take home and wash, their own water bottle, etc. So the bringing in of players won't change dramatically in that they'll come in, they'll have the medical, which will be a slightly different medical, in the same way when you go to the shops, it's a slightly different shopping experience. So everything will be different, but the mechanics of it remain the same in terms of the signing of players. It may be that some of those signatures are done electronically as opposed to physically, but ultimately the end goal will be that we'll be able to bring in players once the window allows us to, and once Darryl has identified players that the chairman and Stef sign off as being ones that we want to bring in and fit the blueprint of this football club.
And in terms of when you mentioned we have 18 players who know each other, I think one thing that massively helped us last season was going away for pre-season. Are there, what sort of plans were in place this season that have now been, disrupted?
Yeah, we had a full pre-season schedule. It started with some non-league visits to the likes of Alfreton, who looked after us so well last year, followed by a trip out to Poland. We were going out to Gdansk, and the exec board were going to join Darryl and his team because, as we spoke about, the importance of bonding as a unit is very important for a sporting football club like ourselves. And then it was some more fixtures against League One opposition, League Two opposition, with a home friendly at the Bankses. It's not that now. It's going to be a very different pre-season. I would imagine that pre-season will take place at training grounds, with teams invited to Essington and ourselves being invited to other training grounds. But ultimately, the important thing is about getting fit and then match fit. So whether that game's played in the stadium on a training ground, the mechanics of what they're trying to achieve remains the same. So, yeah, it's going to be a very different pre-season to the one we had planned.
And I mean, I'll go back to a finance point of view but now we've got the community hub update. You know, if I'm correct in saying this, Dan, the construction's restarted on that.
Yeah, as the chairman spoke about in our last Zoom call, it was paused, and that's exactly what it was, paused. So it's restarted. Started Monday the 8th of June, working obviously with COVID-19 protocol, which will slightly delay the build. But what we have at the moment is a little bit more time because the season isn't due to return at the time that we thought it would be. So that work will continue to take place. And just a big thank you actually to all the supporters who contributed towards the Independent Saddlers Supporters Association's £5,100 donation to the football club, which we'll use to skin the Bescott bar. And you know, from the comms meetings we have daily, Tom, that'll be a really good body of work where the supporters will be able to choose what legends feature on those skins, and it'll be very akin to the new dressing room. So a massive thank you to everybody who took part in that, and also to the travel section who put a donation of £4,000 into the football club this week, which again we've earmarked to go towards the furnishing of the community hub, because we felt that the money that the supporters raise should be put back into an area that the supporters will enjoy. So it's been a wonderful project, and it's brought the football club and our supporters even closer together.
And something that, again, I'm sure all three of you could touch upon is the introduction of Aston Villa ladies or Aston Villa women's team to the Banksy Stadium for next season. Can somebody just talk us through how that came about?
Go, Dan.
That was a conversation that we'd had. We've got an excellent relationship with Aston Villa, which has been built on over the years, and it helps that their entire coaching staff cut the teeth at our place as well. So, but we've got a wonderful relationship with that football club. We've hosted their under-23s for a number of years. It's just an expansion of that, really. They've really put focus into the women's section of their football club, as we have. And now that they've got promotion, they want a stadium that is the envy of the Women's Super League, and the Banksy Stadium will certainly be that. It will be the biggest and best stadium in the Women's Super League. It will mean that the Aston Villa women's first team will play their home fixtures. All the league fixtures and some of the cup fixtures will be at the Banksy Stadium, either on a Saturday evening or a Sunday evening. Obviously, our first team fixtures take precedent. But I'd also like to assure those supporters who've seen the good work that this board have put into Walsall ladies over the last 12 months, that Walsall ladies will have the opportunity to play at the Banksy Stadium as well during the course of next season. Not every week. We'll earmark a fixture where they can play, as we had done for the season that has just been curtailed, but sadly their season was voided as opposed to curtailed. So it's great for Walsall Football Club. I'm sure that Stef and Leigh would echo those thoughts, and it's going to be good for Walsall ladies because they'll be able to build a good relationship with a Women's Super League team that have got a lot more sort of infrastructure than we have. They're where we want to be, basically.
Well, that's brilliant. Leigh, is the Stef anything you two would like to end on, really?
No, I mean, I'll end really by reinforcing the point. I mean, I think I always want to finish one of these with a thank you to the support we've had through this process from all of the stakeholders, but particularly the fans and the supporters groups that Dan's mentioned, and the trust as well have been very helpful, as well as the other groups. So thank you to all of them and for the continuing support. And we'll continue to keep you informed. And we are rightly ambitious about next season, and I've explained the reasons why. And I just can't wait to see them all back in the stadium. I've missed them.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for joining me again, gents, and I'm sure we'll do another one of these to update supporters in the coming weeks as well.